is a good morning again, viewer from wherever you are following us from here at UBC, where we now bring to you the program for Pan-African Friday program that comes your way every Friday from the studios of UBC here on Nile Avenue in the heart of Kampala. These Fridays, we normally talk about issues that concern the lives of the people of Africa, those who are living in Africa and those who are living outside of Africa, to look at specifics on how this continent is impacted socially, economically, and politically. So it is such a time that we sit and look at all these issues. The next 2 hours are going to be bumpy on a ride, and I welcome you to be with us on this journey. You can also send us your views on a number that will be giving. You don't call police, you send us a WhatsApp message. We definitely receive it, and if possible, we'll respond to it. If we cannot respond to it today, we shall definitely start with it in the next program when we get back on air to discuss the Pan-African Friday issues. So today in the studio, I'm joined by the usual panelists, my sister Rachel Takali, and also my ndugu Irumba. I know Council Rugarama will be joining us shortly also. He must be in the corridor somewhere here, but he will be with us shortly. Today we'll be looking at the issues of poverty. Is poverty an African problem? Are we Africans responsible for the poverty? What is poverty anyway? And when we look at these issues, what do we do to come out of this situation? Is it necessary that some people are referring to us as poor people of the world, or actually are we poor? Or are they anywhere, the rest of the world, better than what we are? So these are some of the issues that we'll be looking at today. But poverty being a wider subject, maybe it could be looked at even beyond today. But as usual, we usually start our week with, our discussion with what has happened in the week on this African continent, or issues of concern and interest to the African population, both here at home and elsewhere outside of Africa, where some of you people call in the diaspora or outside of Africa. I'll start with Rachel to take us through what she experienced or what she has seen of significance or importance to the African population, African values, African interest, particularly in the week we are ending today, being a Friday. Of course, we talk of our cycles from week to week, from Friday to Friday, as Pan-African program. Rachel, welcome.
Thank you so much. I think for me, what is of special interest this week is a little beyond the African continent, but not that far.
Okay.
The events that are unfolding in Israel as we speak. I think for me what stood out and still stands out is that our Arab brothers and sisters are in similar shape as the peoples of Africa in general. It's interesting because the loudest voices, at least from where we are at this time, are not how people are reacting to this terrible situation in Egypt and in Morocco and in Mauritania, or even UAE or Saudi Arabia. The loudest people at this time are the Western nations, Europe and America. And they have gone so far as to send some of their high-powered foreign ministers talking about their standing shoulder to shoulder with the people of Israel at any cost. I wish it was also the same from our Arab brothers. I was hoping that the King of Saudi would have also sent a delegation by now to stand shoulder to shoulder with the people of Palestine, or if the people of Qatar had sent off a plane load of high-powered dignitaries to support the cause of the Palestinians. I'm saying all this to underline the fact that the people of the Arab world are similarly disempowered as the people of Africa. Even when they feel the pain of the Palestinians, they know the cost of coming out clearly to associate with their suffering brothers. Because the hypocritical West is pretending that the lives of Israelis are infinitely more valuable than the people of Palestine. They say that when Hamas stormed the borders imposed upon the people of Palestine by Israel and actually inflicted these losses on Israeli nationals, they say about 1,300 people went down in that exchange. But as we speak, Israel has killed more Palestinians in revenge. And they're claiming they will do that and keep doing that until they release at least 100 of their hostages. What I'm trying to say, Ndugu Mututa, is that the struggles of the people of Africa to actually occupy their space and to champion their own causes is also an issue that is very much at the heart of other people's aspirations. Look at how helpless the Arab world is, as the West and its cousins, the people of Israel, are committing genocide. They have occupied the space at the UN and commandeered it into a place of also taking sides. They are projecting all these images, talking about the catastrophic loss of life for the Israelis. But the people of Palestine have endured much more over the years. I know the situation is the same in far out places such as South America. Wherever you don't control your narrative, this sort of laughable telling of your story takes center stage.
Sure.
So for me, it is really linking our dilemma to the people of the Arab world.
Oh, of course, that comes to mind that the struggles for self-determination is the same. You don't have to be a white man, you don't have to be an Arab, you don't have to be an Indian, you don't have to be an Asian, you don't have to be anything. But that these struggles for life, for recognition, for self-governance, for self-aspiration are the same. It may not be in your area, it may not be in your interest, but that's the same. And this is what I normally tell people, that Africans are not as barbaric as people think. Because until recently, one would not believe that there could be a war where people are going for each other's necks, where people are slaughtering themselves in numbers, except in Africa, until it happened in Europe. So I think the world now needs to wake up to know that until equality is a principle for human survival, I think the issues of peace will be very elusive. And you
True.
can see that as long as a person, as a group of persons or a society has not been given that leeway, that liberty to live as they wish by trying to impose on them. Because what's now happening in Israel, there's someone saying, no, please, you stop. Because why are you saying you shouldn't? Are you hiding something so that it doesn't?
But also, in Ndugu Mututa, this is more directly maybe of African interest. The United States intelligence services are on record saying that 3 days before this attack, the latest attack by Hamas, Egyptian intelligence had shared that very scenario with Israel. But I think because Israel has a superiority complex, I think they thought, well, how can Egypt be ahead of us?
Tell us.
We, especially of the Mossad fame, are the premier intelligence outfit in the world. And so they must have thrown that information on the rubbish heap.
No, but even then, you know, in intelligence, it is also possible that you get that information and then you begin working towards it. Say, let's have a justification for the attack. I have always wanted to attack, but I have not had a justification. I can allow you to do that so that I can also now get my way It is also possible. But also that issue of complexes, it happens quite a lot for some people who think they're so powerful that they cannot listen to, I mean, who is it, you to tell me this? That complexity can also cause a lot of trouble.
True.
Yeah. Ndugu Irumba, abatoro ni bagamba ki?
Thank you for the opportunity, Comrade Mututa, and of course my senior sister here, Rachel Takali. Two things caught my attention this week. One is a lighter one from Parliament here, but the most interesting, the most horrific one is what is happening in the Gaza. Let me begin with the lighter one. Honorable Zakov Noop went to a certain person's constituency and said what he said. Yeah? That became a national issue on Parliament yesterday. Spending taxpayers' money talking about personal issues that where you feel aggrieved Rachel Takali, you should go to court and force Zake to pay for his sins. But members of Parliament are using our taxes, our resources, to bring all manner of nonsensical issues to the floor of Parliament, and they want the whole country to look at them as national issues. Really, Mr. Mututa, how can an abuse, I say you have a big head and tomorrow you go in Parliament and you want Parliament to discuss that, and they send you to the Parliamentary Committee on Discipline and all those are resources. All those are resources. Parliament passes laws. Why don't you follow the laws? They know that they have immunity when they're on the floor of Parliament. You get it? An issue that is before the floor of Parliament, that can be discussed in Parliament. But I have gone out. I have abused someone, I have a problem with someone, and you bring it from the constituency to the Parliament. Do you want it to be a national issue? How is that a national issue? There are so many issues yesterday they could have discussed about. Issues of torture, abduction, and so on. They did not. They dwelled on 9 issues. So I thought that needed some attention. People should stop misusing offices. Now, number 2 is about the hypocrisy of America in the Gaza issue, Palestine and Israel. For me, I'm looking for the hypocrisy of America.
Are you saying it's only
And
America?
its cousins.
And its cousin, of
are you
course.
saying America is the only country involved?
No, it's not the only, but you can see it is the one that has taken center stage. It's the one even who is now directing Netanyahu. And Netanyahu 100% believes in America's strategy, solutions. You can see even they've been talking on phone. I know Netanyahu so far has talked to so many world leaders, but he's isolating one, Biden's speech with him. So it shows you that America is at the center stage. This is my issue. Killing children, raping women, shattering them, abducting them should not be anywhere in the world. It doesn't matter whether it has been done by Palestine or Israel. America agrees with Israel to retaliate, to do the same atrocities they are accusing Palestine.
So you are suggesting
Wait
that...
a minute. Palestine has done the worst to humanity, killing children. It's like a Holocaust. Killing children, killing women, miming them. It's bad. Now, when the world power called America joins you and agrees with you that you should retaliate in the same currency, go and kill innocent children, go and kill women, rape them, abduct them. They have killed so far. Palestine, it is alleged that they have killed 8,000. So far, in retaliation, Israel has killed so far 7,000.
So there's a balance of 1,000.
Yeah. So now, if you say it is bad to kill, don't support any other person to kill. Because what have the children of Palestine done? This is what we are blaming. This is what we are blaming Palestine for. Now you Israel, when you do the same.
But you know,
So
for me,
can wrong correct wrong?
in this particular case,
I have seen Biden.
you know that you have an aggressor. You know, you have a hostile neighbor, and I believe definitely that what Israel is doing now does not amount to any solution to the problem in the Gaza area. But also, should Israel sit back to watch Hamas kill more people just because they don't want to?
No, that's not the point. You cannot sit back and watch. But
so how do you expect them? How do you expect them to handle?
You must be more sensible, so that you create space for us, all of us in the world, to blame Palestine. Now we are sort of who to blame. They have attacked you. You want the world to join you to condemn those who have attacked innocent children in your country. You have, in retaliation, done them the same.
Yeah, because what I'm asking is that you look at the situation where Hamas is firing about hundreds of rockets into Israel at will. And then you are saying Israel should just sit and wait until they stop firing. Then say, you see, these people are attacking us, so now we have to ask for international community to come and help us?
No, I have said, I have no problem with repulsing the aggressors, defending the country, but be more sensible than these people. Why are we accusing Palestine? For entering a country and kill its innocent people.
Exactly.
Now, what are you doing, you Palestine? I mean, you Israel. You are doing the same. Now, the only mistake now we can blame them, Palestine, is for being the first to attack. But otherwise, you have done the same. So, in retaliation, you must be sensible enough to target the soldiers, the armory, the installations of government, not hospitals of people, not homes of people, not children, not women. Why do you want to rape women? And on your side, you call it an abomination when they do the same on yours. But for you, when you do it on the other, it is okay. You are retaliating. You are punishing an innocent woman. You are punishing an innocent child. This is exactly what we are condemning Palestine for. So when you do the same, you are one and the same.
Exactly.
So my point is, America, this cowboy called America, is supporting Israel to do these kinds of atrocities. Tomorrow they will blame Israel. I mean, Palestine.
Maybe there are also other countries that are supporting Hamas.
I don't mind. I have told you, right now, the supervisor of this war is America. You have had even Netanyahu. Once America is on your side, then the entire world. By the way, you wait, Africa very soon. They are going to start mobilizing. Who are you supporting? Like they have been doing in Ukraine.
They are not going to do that. Africa is always that because you belong. No, Rachel, you had something to say.
I think for me, it's a wake-up call for those of us who are still asleep. The fact that the neo-colonialist is very clear concerning his interests. It is us who get emotional about these calculations. When it comes to the calculations of America and her cousins, there is no shame, there is no ambiguity. It's always cold and very deliberate. The chief supervisor of America's interests in the Middle East is Israel. So this is really payback for a job well done. They have managed to contain countries such as Iran, Iraq, Syria, and others, who would have definitely taken a very radical path concerning securing their own national interests. Hadn't it been for the vigilance of Israel, which includes assassinations. They are, I think, the leading assassinator in the whole world. They're on record saying they have a full outfit that is dedicated to assassinating people. For example, in Iran, in recent days, Iran has suffered the wrath of Israel. They consider it to be a cheaper way to preserve their interests. So instead of bombing a whole village in Iran, where they think that nuclear weapons might be developed any day now.
Yeah.
They look for the leading scientist in that program. They look for key figures to retard the progress of a certain program. So for them, they have not been shy about saying, well, so and so, yes, we took him out. He was trying to get Iran ahead of the curve. So what I'm saying is that, and we've said that before many times, is that the people of the leadership in Europe and the leadership in America, they know exactly where they want to go, and they will pay such a price to maintain a chokehold at the helm of global affairs. This is America's way of saying, you have been a very good student, Israel. You have been a very capable executor of indeed what we would like to see in this region. And of course, lately, America, since Mr. Trump took power in America, had been very, very forceful concerning softening the image of Israel to some of the other nations with which Israel wants to work in that region, among them United Arab Emirates and others, Qatar. They've been really trying to sell the fact that it would do these countries well to actually link up with Israel, forget the tears of the Palestinians, because many of them, the chief objection was that they cannot talk of regularizing relations with Israel when the people of Palestine are suffering to this degree. But I'm afraid that this thing that has been fast-tracked, in fact, in recent days, efforts had been stepped up to sweeten this deal in the eyes of the people of Saudi Arabia. But I'm thinking that at this time, that strategy will be cooled down in the coming days.
Now, yeah, away from that, your friend Lawrence Ware, I think he has a big task to win that election, and if he doesn't do that, it means there will be, if he can't get it from on right, he will have to go for a rerun, and that rerun may be not very good for him. But you know, one thing I'm learning, which we have discussed here anyway, it's not a new thing, that you can change leaders, because you remember when this football turned politician came on power, he premised his campaign on corruption, on development, on the infrastructure. But basically, these are the same things they are choosing him now of not doing. And yet, this guy, when he was coming, and people were saying, having seen a man who has played football in Europe, has lived everywhere, now coming home, they saw a clear road. But one time at the end, people are saying no, same things that he campaigned against. So I think the people of Liberia, like any other of the African on the African continent, are now saying, I think enough is enough. But I think he will win that election, because the results started coming in about 2 days ago. They have not finished the compilation. He's still doing very well. Now, even if they went for the land, still has a chance of winning. But what I'm saying is that the framework, the structure on which we have built the African democracies in these small villages is the same. And unless, like I said, we wake up to look at Africa in a bigger picture, we are still suffering the same repeats, same episodes of the same disease sicknesses. And you can see from any other elections that we have held on this African continent, we have elections, then tomorrow we're still complaining about the same things. I know elsewhere in the world things are not any way better, but what we are saying is that I think Africa needs to see its position and change the way we do things on this continent.
That is very true. And these things are repeated again and again for us to actually internalize the things that are around us. I think one of the better things that African leaders can do going forward is to actually explain to the people that what they think is to be a leader of an African nation and what it is to actually be the leader of an African nation are not one and the same. you realize when you get there that there are many dynamics that are very much beyond you. There are many things that you would like to change, but I think an honest engagement with the populace would help, because these expectations would then be mitigated by the truth of the facts as we see them now. Because as you say, if you set out to develop the infrastructure in such and such an area, and you're leaning on the World Bank or the IMF to deliver financing, and then they say, look, because you're not towing the line, we'll not release the money, it means you will not meet your targets.
Sure.
I think one of the bigger mistakes that has been made by many of our leaders is to act as if every single dynamic concerning that the progress that we require is in their hands. But many of these cards are elsewhere.
Sure.
Many of these goals are made in distant capitals. I think the game of pretending we are more in charge than we really are needs to end. We need to be more sober and more truthful to the people.
Sure. Ndugu Irumba.
Well,
What? Okay.
No, you can continue.
No, I was asking one question, because these discussions that have been going on, that maybe we could have, or we should have remained with our leaders as we used to have the kings. Maybe they could have delivered on something than when we went for the politicians. But also at the same time, you realize that even these kings, you look at, of course, the history of Uganda, that these kings were not kings in their own capacity, in their own right. Someone had to have a hand behind their being who they finally became. So you realize that even during the kingdom era, that the colonialists were still very active. We could see that happening in Uganda, we could see that happening in Bunyoro. Many other kingdoms, of course, over this continent of Africa. President Museveni has been very cardinal on that, saying this, even as they were trading Africans, taking them in slave trade, and these people did not just come to the village and round up people. But there was some collaboration with some people, local people. The chiefs, those who, if they didn't want your family, they will sell you off with your children and your wife. If they didn't want the husband, they will sell you the husband. So we normally blame a lot about these people who have come and influenced a lot of things. Our people also.
Yeah, I think that it has been designed by our colonial masters that whether they are on your land or away from your land, there will still be a system on how they will manipulate you and your people and your resources. And that's one. Number two is it's been almost completely difficult to fight that system. Why? Because you realize that the first thing they did was to ensure that they give certain people some powers. And then when you look at the partitioning of Africa, they were trying to empower certain individuals in certain geographical locations. Those certain individuals now became like part of them because you were there to supervise their systems. I'll give you an example here. Up to now, Buganda Kingdom is still demanding for its Maila Akenda. But when you ask them, who gave it to you? It's a white man, the colonial master. Now, he gave it to you from where? Is it a shirt that he bought and brought it into Uganda? No, he found it here. So how can someone give you what belongs to you already? But when you hear them demanding for it, you may think it's like a car, like the car they donated to Sir Kabaka Mutesa, the first president. Like the Muzungu brought a car and gave and donated to him. That's how they demand this American and other properties. So it means the mindset was so much conquered that they give you what you want to hear. They give you a lot of land over other subjects of Uganda. Then you will start fighting for their interests because they have also taken care of your interests. Your interest is in amassing land and being a kabaka of Sabataka But you have not used any single coin to buy any land, but you own the land. Who gave it to you? The white man. The white man. Now, tomorrow, you cannot stand on that same land and say, colonialists are very bad. No, you cannot. If you are saying they are very bad, everything they did was wrong, then you return the land.
And that's what French does.
And that's now the problem. Can you, in Africa, who is willing? So, that's the dilemma we have.
But now,
in our African context.
Of course, we normally talk about things sometimes in passing, but sometimes it becomes so serious that when you look at it, if someone has been able to bribe, someone can bribe you with money, and you can at one point say, no, if that's the money, I'll take it back. Someone can give you like the land, you can even, but if someone bribes your conscience, it becomes a permanent damage to you. To the extent that...
And this conscience has been bought even to go for generations. Like now, you can imagine how many kings have come and gone, but the same things that the colonial masters gave them are passed
yeah, because
on.
we are talking about it, in that it is a framework that has been set, that you can have a president coming onto power with very, very bright ideas. But finally, when you settle down in that seat, you begin having voices, they tell you, Mukama wafu, these things cannot be done like this. This cannot be done because this. This cannot be because we have agreements. You know, countries have engagements, have treaties, have agreements. So when people are out there, they can make a lot of noise. But once you settle in this seat, you realize that things are not easy as that, because I think it was Rachel last time who was talking about someone who said, let me have what I have and be safe. Like you are now in self-preservation. Because you know, definitely if you are going to pursue that, you need a madman to say, if it is bad, let it be bad. But for our people, we need this. And we have seen this happen. And last time we were talking about Lumumba and others who pushed their agenda because they were basing on the demands of their people and on the aspirations of their people, and we see where their end was. Now, I'm not saying that Africans should be shy over pushing of these things that are good for Africa, but that we also need, you cannot work it alone.
Working in isolation,
yes.
Working in installments.
Yeah.
Today Niger is fighting the colonialists.
Our founding fathers tried to do this, but they were undermined by their own people, their fellow leaders, because you see people moving around. Nkrumah was moving around to mobilize the other African leaders. So look, let's move on this path. We are saying, Nyerere was saying, but I think let's go slow. This is too ambitious. We may not get it. Up to that, to now we still have voices saying, it is too ambitious. Let's do what? Let's go slow. But even in our going slowness, if we are not focused, we are not going to get where we want to get, because this framework has already been set. Now we need to do that by dismantling and looking at what has been set down. Unfortunately, you realize that even as the founding fathers of Africa were phasing out, those who came after them, were also basically trained from these capitals. And that training was also specific. They wouldn't take no one from Africa to go to Europe and be trained and then come back and do what you want. No. There is a follow-up. So that infrastructure that has been built will need time to dismantle. But how we dismantle that now needs to have Africa coming together, like she was saying.
And just the other day, when at the 61st independence anniversary here in Kololo, President Museveni, after the function, he met 3 delegations from fairly different parts of this continent. He met a delegation from Burundi, and another from Tanzania, and another from Sahrawi People's Republic, off of Morocco. But all those countries had different colonial masters. Tanzania had started out with the Germans, who gave up after they lost the Second World War, and Britain briefly inserted itself in the equation. Then, of course, you have Sahrawi, and because they were part and parcel of Morocco, they were also part of a different arrangement. The French overhang in that part of the world. Burundi, we know that they had the Belgian hands all over them. But President Museveni was trying to resurrect the idea that where we left off, this idea of integration cannot be underestimated.
Sure.
It can't even be wished away. Integration is the future of Africa. These delegations were case in point. If those who had been, whose colonial experiment was overseen by the Belgians, and then by the French, and then by the English, and then by the Germans, the outcome is the same misery. It means that these, our former colonial masters, were in agreement those many years ago, in the 1800s and in the 1900s, that they had to secure lock, stock, and barrel the human resource, the mineral wealth, the very futures and destinies of these people, so that they would be enslaved to them.
Exactly.
Until now and beyond. I'm afraid the experiment was extremely successful.
And still continues to be.
Yeah, oh, God have
Unfortunately.
mercy. But even the belated acknowledgement that what the Nkrumah started on is still what we need today is
We have not
really
moved.
to know that those people were far beyond their times. We haven't moved, yes, but we still require the same approach. And that is what President Museveni was saying just the other day. Our little national borders will not deliver the promised land. Our little, whatever it is, we must find a way of bringing these forces together yesterday. Not even today, yesterday.
When we come back from the break, we'll be looking at the poverty issue. And I don't know why poverty has been so much attached to the black race, the black people, the African people, wherever we have been. But we will be looking at it in detail to find out, is it actually Africa responsible for the poverty that we are going through, or if we are going through anyway, or is it that the invisible hand that my colleagues normally talk about that is still keeping us in this poverty? Are we making it ourselves, or someone is imposing it on us that we cannot be able to see that we need to do something to get out of this situation? Don't go away. We shall be back shortly after this break.
Nibanyita kananye niyita Sezi Nuwagaba, commercial officer at Ntungamo District Government.
I am Sezi Nuwagaba, the commercial officer for Ntungamo Local Government. I express my gratitude to God for this platform and the Emyuga initiative brought to us by His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, as it has positively transformed the lives of the people in Ntungamo, whom I have known for a long time. When you visit the beneficiaries of this program, you can easily witness the significant positive changes in their lives. The audit report demonstrates that despite their leader being deaf and blind, profits are being made, highlighting how this program has actively engaged and evolved every individual. Initially, we received 2,650 million Uganda shillings. Each constituency received 530 million Uganda shillings. I would like to express my gratitude to this platform for providing us with the opportunity to share information about the Emyuga program. Our special thanks go to the President for initiating the program, and additionally, I would like to mention that there are numerous similar projects in Rubare and Ntungamo.
bintu biri bisatu ebigaggawaza abantu: production, service delivery, obubbi.
Etuuseewo katapira twakka etuuse naye obuzibu obuliwo nti ettaka litugenda okusenda ddene tuyingidde mu muzikiti fuuti 10 omuzikiti ogwagazaki tukusende nagwo senda
3,000 tribes, 2,000 languages, 52 countries, totally divided.
Is it the Namgala you talk about? Yeah. Automedia.
Fire continue burning.
No. Let her teach fire.
You started the fight, let it go on. The wedding is cancelled and my word final.
Akufunisa mawunda ga bwerere. Ngira kumpola mpola.
And take it from me.
Okay, Dad.
The British that first came to this country came way back in 1843. They were not politicians, they were spies.
It's a call to action, an appeal. Let us heed this call to action and change the narrative of our history. Let us bridge the gap. Let us heal the wounds that have plagued us for far too long. Cease fire. Let us harmonize our future. Cease fire.
This weekend on UBC.
What's up, beautiful people? We are here at Center High School, Nama campus, and guess what? We are having a lot of vibes. If you are not watching Teens Crown, you do not know where you are, because it's going down right here, right.
And
Program My School, a great students program and your answer to education perspective, giving you reason as to why you should pay school fees for your child's education, with items like students' talents, thoughts, adventures, and skill showcased, leadership skills, and all other activities plus concerns in various schools in your locations. Remember that our children are our future generation. Don't miss Program My School.
This weekend on UBC.
You are not a human being having a spiritual experience. You're a spiritual being having a human experience.
I lost my mom when I was a teenager. I was about 15.
Have you been able to process the fact that you are not there anymore?
I desire a man that sees me.
Marriages and intimate relationships are failing everywhere in the world.
It's a show that's going to change lives. In order for me to truly heal, I need to be vulnerable.
One of the things that actually prevents people from exercising, exercise just seems like something that other people do.
You need to watch this episode. I'm the catalyst. I transform lives by transforming minds. And welcome to the Transformation Show.
This weekend on UBC.
Welcome back from that break that we have just been through. And before we went off for the break, we were saying we will be now examining issues of poverty, because we have seen wherever the people of Africa have been, they have been associated with poverty. Actually here at home, but also in major countries outside. We have about 20 countries outside of Africa that have the majority of the African people. Haiti, we have people in Brazil, people all over these places where they were taken against their will. But we have seen that there is a lot that happens in these communities. So we are asking a question, is poverty an African thing? Is it an in thing to us Africans, that whenever we're associated with poverty, with crime, with disease, with all the bad things that you can mention? But is that true? It's something that we'll be looking on today, and maybe even the subsequent episode of the program, that we need to investigate and find out if it's actually Africans who should be responsible for all these things, or someone is forcing us into that. Now, together with my co-panelists in the studio, Rachel and Irumba, we'll be looking at this. Of course, we were today not having Ndugu Rugarama, who has disappeared, I think, in the corridors here, but he will be found here. You know, they say that saying, Mulavya Kotakuba, but he will be making his way maybe in the next program. Well, last week, by the way, he disappeared, and we were looking for him, then he disappeared. Or of course, being a lawyer, a client could have called, say, Banange Bantu Alaganya, so you better run down here, and I think that's what happened. But ladies and gentlemen, without even being academic, let's look at poverty. What does that, a term like poverty sound to us? We'll begin with Rachel.
My understanding of what poverty is a situation of being unable to actually meet the very basic, your very own basic needs.
Yes. And the basic needs, we are looking about food.
Yes.
We're talking about shelter,
medical,
health,
talking about health and the clothes that
education,
you can put on. Yes.
Education.
Water, sanitation, shelter.
Yeah, shelter is important.
That is my understanding of what...
The lack of those.
Yes. Or on account of resources. Not because there are some people, especially in the so-called developed world, who have chosen to walk away from civilization as we know it. There are communities that who choose to abandon technology, but it's by choice. So in this situation, it is not by choice.
Yes.
You wake up and there is no healthcare nearby. These other people I'm talking about have walked away from piped water, and they get their water directly from the stream to get nearer to the original interpretation of being free. But that is not what is pertaining in this particular situation. But I'm thinking that the modern definition or the modern reason for the overwhelming levels of poverty in Africa has to date back to the reconstruction of the African state. Originally, as you know, we were not one as a geographical area. We had those kingdoms and chiefdoms and other arrangements, but those societies within themselves were able to take care of their basic needs. In other words, at least history tells us, many of these people may have had modest shelter, but it was shelter. They may have had modest health care, but it was health care. Modest clothing, but it was clothing. When someone moves around in bark cloth, it is clothing. When someone has a mud and water house, it is a house. When someone uses herbs to treat malaria, it is medication. So I'm believing, me as a person, that the principal reason for our overwhelming poverty from the modern perspective is that the introduction of money as we know it. In those days, many things were done through the barter arrangement. I brought my cows and you gave me mushrooms. I brought my chickens and you gave me beans, and so on and so forth.
Sure.
But the introduction of currency as we know it today has made sure that a significant number of African peoples have been torn from what they knew to be their traditional form of life. This means that whoever controls the supply of this thing called currency determines who is rich and who is not.
Exactly. That's a point that we shall come to when we are looking at this poverty, and we have brought it so far so well. That we at the beginning we were looking at the basics that make a person poor or not poor, looking at poverty. Now, when you look at those basics, you realize there was some factor which was not necessarily mentioned, and that is money, and this currency. That from the onset, the issue of currency was not part of the problems, the part of the wealth that we are looking at. But in Africa specifically, wealth is looked at in a more elaborate way than looking at one item, money. It could even have been money, because even as Africans were starting with trading, they were not using...
And cowrie shells in some cases.
Yeah, and the cowrie shells were also part of the natural wealth, was not something that was manufactured, until someone came in. Now, the unfortunate thing that happens when this definition of poverty is given is the introduction of money. But I think we'll come to that later after Ndugu Irumba has made his submission.
Well, I think that poverty is the state of being extremely poor. You are poor. The state of being inferior in quality or insufficient in amount. Now, in this context of Africa, whether Africa is poor or not poor, who has the weighing scale for the insufficient or sufficient amount of what we value as wealth? Because, let me tell you, Comrade Mututa, Africa used to trade through barter trade. You have chicken, I have goats. You give me chicken, I give you goat.
It's a backward system.
Yeah, you may call it backward, but it was working. Nobody was poor, because at least you have something to exchange for something. Today the white man wants me to exchange my gold, gold, with his dollar. He's giving me a paper that he has printed from Nassau in America, and I'm giving him actual wealth, gold. You get the point? After giving him my gold, which is actual wealth, he has given me a paper which he has printed on Nassau of America. He comes back and says, Africa, you are poor. No. Your system that you want to use on us definitely will mirror us as that which you want to see in us. So it is not true that Africa is poor, that poverty starts from Africa. No, it's a narrative the white man has carefully choreographed to meet his agenda. So when people say, like now Congo here, that Congo is the poorest country, okay, I want to ask you, when they say you are rich, what is it that they count? Is it the money you have on your cabina, in your pocket? Or the resources that you have, the wealth in the properties? So, which country in the world has more properties, has more resources than Congo? So that you say Congo is third world country. Congo is the poorest. So, the context, my brother, and the narrative is designed to project you as so, and that is what they want. And so, I don't want to buy this idea that Africa is anywhere poor than America. It is only a condition they have conditioned us to believe and to live in through their colonialism tendencies, and now what they call the neo-colonialism. America and her cousins have been for decades, for centuries, perpetrating wars. By the way, comrade, even this war in the Middle East, Israel, Palestine, you watch, it has started and revealing. You might find America is the biggest sponsor of this. Bahamas, you might find America has a hand in this.
So now, when we look at that, we were coming to her point, which is very crucial, that the introduction of money in defining the wealth and richness of a person has now taken the center stage in determining who the poor person or who the rich person is. And we look at this when we look at now the World Bank and other agencies.
All those are systems put by the white man.
Yes.
To make sure that they keep you there.
You are defining people who are living in poverty, especially in Africa and Asia, that these are people who are not able to have $2 per day. In other words, now the definition is factoring in the issue of currency. But it is not even just currency. It has to be dollars, the unfortunate of the fortunate. That your life is assessed according to someone's money.
How many dollars
supposing you said a person in Uganda is a person who cannot afford to have 20 Kenya shillings in the pocket. Does it make sense? Or if you said that a poor person in Uganda is a person who cannot have 1,000 South African rands, does it make sense? Much as that cannot make sense in a local context, you are talking about a person who is not going to have $2 per day. My grandmother in the village, who should be subject to $2 in a day. And these dollars, American dollars, it is even said so. So you see that the capitalism which is embedded in the definition of this word poverty and this concept of spreading this dollar to the rest of the world determines who the poor person is. But for example, let's mention the few countries that the people are mentioning as the poorest countries, starting with Africa. One of them I think is Burundi, another one is DRC Congo, another one is Somalia, which is the other one that they are saying is poor. I think Mozambique, they're talking of Malawi, Central African Republic.
Niger.
Exactly, stop at that. But you get down to these countries.
Let us. Why are you tired of the list? Why are you tired of the
now,
big list?
when you get down to these countries, you realize that, and this common information, one can read off the rare earth metals. The rare earth metals are the minerals that are used in making planes, the engines that are used in the making expensive
smartphones.
Yes, the smartphones we are talking about, the communication systems, the military hardware. All these are the things that are found in these same countries that you are calling to be
both
poor.
hardware and software.
Exactly. Now, these same countries, for example, are the same countries where you have conflict, talking of Niger, talking of Somalia, talking of Sudan, South Sudan, talking of which country?
Congo.
All these are the these are the countries that are also highly inflicted with conflict. Now one comes back to say, kumbe, you want to classify this. It is in other words, if someone classified you as a hostile person, is trying to get people away from you. Now, even if that person attacks you, people will say, Omomanyi, that one is already a hostile person. So some of these countries now we discover that they have been categorized first of all with conflict, and they are also poor. But actually when you go down, they are the ones who are the major supplies of the
raw materials,
the materials that you are dying to have.
And also the other thing is that all these countries that have been categorized as poorest, you find that the Europeans are there. They are living there. They even have their embassies there. They have their armies there.
No, because what happens, and I know Rachel will talk about this, is that when you are internationally categorized as a poor country, but also with conflict was going on, you qualify to get assistance. And because you get assistance, you will get NGOs coming in to help you, to help your government to provide for the basic services that we talked about to your people. Now, and you remember that one of the, was it in Mali or in Niger, where there was a discovery of platinum, of which mineral?
Uranium.
There was a new mineral that was discovered, which is one of the expensive minerals now. And the NGO had taken over that place.
Lithium.
Yes, I think it was yes, lithium or some other one. Because lithium is a common, but there was one with that. No. Now, you find these NGOs in these countries, not because they want to help these countries, but they're also looking for information. Now, the latest studies show that Africa is going to replace China in providing for these important minerals and metals that the world needs so much in these areas of communication and the manufacturing of this expensive equipment. So then you realize actually that the issue of poverty has been defined based on that dollar so much, but with a background that you need to categorize people as poor so that you'll be able to come and help them. But as you help them, you're also exploiting them. I think that's the point which I wanted to drive to before you come in, Rachel.
I think, like you said, this narrative of defining people as poor, and yet they occupy spaces that have the greatest natural wealth.
Exactly.
All these countries, the ones that are classified as the poorest, those 5, there's Burundi, Somalia, DRC, Central African Republic, and Mozambique,
yes,
have very vast deposits of some of these minerals. But I think one of the things that was very important for the white man to do was to divorce the African people from the production chains of their wealth, but also the marketing mechanisms.
The raw material into...
let alone value addition.
Exactly. What I think, and I like President Museveni for that.
So they have made sure that if you cannot exploit what you have, you cannot refine it, let alone market it at reasonable rates, then for sure, because they introduced the currency, which is the dollar, the dominant currency, you will not be able to get the dollars in reasonable amounts, and therefore you will be relegated to the bottom of the heap. But this narrative is not confined to Africa. A generation ago, America was at the top, Japan was second in economic terms, GDP, and the third at that time was Germany. Over the last so many years, Germany has been overtaken by China, which also overtook Japan. So China now sits in the second, as the second largest GDP in the world. But also a generation ago, in the 5th place, as far as big GDP players go, sat Britain, which has been overthrown in recent years by India. But it is these same people, the IMF, the World Bank, and so on, now they're obsessed with making sure that China says or maintains their line, or actually abandons their line, of $2 a day. They want China, now that is the latest campaign, China, please, you've risen up in the world of big boys. Now $5.50 should be what defines the poor in your country. Why is that important? Then they're now on India. Say, please, India, a generation ago, $2 defined the poor in your country. Please, now you have risen up the ladder, make it $3.20.
So in other words, the poor shouldn't go away.
Yes. So now the category of poor has been, it has been recalibrated. Because India,
they have graduated.
You have risen into a certain level, middle class, lower middle class, or upper. Please, also you reach the poor people, readjust your scale. Why is that important to you? It is important because in real terms, I must be able to keep my eyes on the 700 million so-called poor in China and the 500 million so-called poor in India. Why are you not focusing on the majority who have actually meaningfully increased their living standards? It is important to fix yourself in this group that you say is poor. Now, not very long ago in this country, there are certain officials who fronted the shameful narrative that says girls of 15 years old, in as far as they are no longer in formal education, need to have family planning methods introduced to them.
Yeah, I heard that controversy, but I think that's...
But you know where it comes from? It comes from these people's obsession that says, you are having too many children. You are growing too fast. These are people who are in negative population growth.
Now, you hold it there, because let's not lose that point, because I know it's going to be very important for where we're heading.
I wish you continue.
But no, she's going to continue from there, but there are a few things that we'll not look at. When
I love the angle.
when you look at that, who are these decision makers? You remember one time we sat here and we talked about that, but before we come to that, I want to contribute to her point that the poor are supposed to be there. You don't have to, if you get away and into some grade.
Who will they exploit? Exactly.
So you have to have your poverty have to be with you. But for the unfortunate is that in sports, and unfortunately Nduguru Garama is not here. You know, he is a person who is very passionate about football and the rest. But these guys are not only shameful, they are not only whatever the name that you can use, but in the Federation of, I think it is the Olympics, the Paralympics, no, it's Olympics, where they are saying that you see now, Africans are beating everyone in marathon, especially long races. They have introduced a clause, which they are now debating, that they want to introduce a medal for the non-East African participants. That for you from East Africa, you can compete with the Cheprop, with who, and the Ethiopians, and you win. But for countries that are coming out of that region, they will have their own competition. They should have their own competition.
Now, why haven't they introduced a medal for the gymnasts, where white men are?
Exactly.
And for the people who are doing javelin, where the white men are? Why aren't they introducing a category? These people are obsessed with fixing people there. I mean, what kind
because
of
their reasoning is that we also
in
want
the swimming pools where they're dominant, why aren't they introducing medals to make sure, you know, the white man just swims against other white men? You know,
that shows you that Africa needs to wake up. That there are ceilings that have been set. Then, as we continue eating ourselves and to continue quarreling over stupid things, people are creating ceilings for us.
Which is also very true. And as you said, along those very lines, this fixation with population growth is in self-interest of those people.
Exactly. So I was coming back to your point. Yes.
When they come with their methods, you're like, all right, we'll regulate our families. And I am not arguing against reasonable family size, whatever that is. But to say that the main reason or the principal reason why Africa is poor is because of its numbers is hypocrisy of the worst level.
Okay, now even
India alone has a bigger population than Africa.
To add to your point, when they talk of the 5 poor countries in Africa, the poorest African countries, no, not even in the Africa in the world. When you go to Burundi, is there a population outflow in Burundi?
I'm not aware of any.
South Sudan. Is there?
No.
All these countries, there's no population that has broken the limits, that this population is too much. But the worry is that these people are growing and
will
they
become
will
more productive in yourselves
yes.
in a generation from now.
Exactly.
So you must work around the clock. Remember, these are people who worked very hard to overturn the traditional values that says a girl keeps herself for marriage. that young women conduct themselves in a certain way until a suitor comes along. They worked around the clock to overturn that traditional narrative.
Are these not
Now
some,
they are saying
are this not some of the things you have been pushing for, that women emancipation?
No, women emancipation.
I'm not even opposed to that, rather.
Women
But
emancipation is not the same as losing one's
activism.
mind. True women's emancipation is not the same as losing one's mind.
But now the challenge has been that when they are selling their narrative, they bring it as wholesale. They tell you the good side of contraceptives at 15. They don't tell you the negative side.
But come
And I was saying,
now that means okay.
Rachel, finish your point.
No, I was saying that emancipation, and this emancipation is not the one that was originally envisaged. This one has been overtaken by all kinds of extremists. To say that a girl who's 15 years old, who does not have one child to her name, should begin to poison her body, by the time she is 25, her body would have been significantly exposed to external whatever.
Destruction.
Well, now that girl, by the time she turns 30, is entering a union with someone and cannot have children. Whose problem will it be? And there are many who are struggling at 25. And I'm not saying that the only reason why people can't have children is because of premature use of these things.
Which is also part of the problem.
But what we are saying is that I don't know that there is any parent worth his or her name who thinks that a child who's 15 and has never had any child should actually begin on contraception when they should be focused on actually finding their place in life. But they should now be obsessed with this other thing.
I agree with you, Rachel.
Why?
I agree with you, Rachel Takali. But let me also say that I think the biggest undoing in Africa right now are our politicians. This narrative Takali you're talking about is being sold by a politician in Africa.
No,
they bring
technocrats and bureaucrats.
Yeah, mainly the politicians. They bring these things in the parliament. By the way, by the time you know it will be on the floor of parliament, they will be voting. Those in favor of aye, say aye. In favor of nay, the ayes have it. Now, we as Africans, we must find our own template, our own model for every lifestyle that we need.
And I'm saying...
No, let me finish my point. We must find our own template. Which lifestyle do we need to live? You, the white man, you are saying Africa is overpopulated. Have we complained to you that we are lacking what to eat?
And if China has more people than us,
India,
and it has not kept them from developing.
India, one of the key indicators, and one of the reasons India and China are growing at a faster rate than others is because of its population.
Yes.
You see the point? Now, why? Specifically for India and China. If you have a market, like for India, a market of 1.3 billion natives, your own local market, 1.3 billion. If you produce a phone, each one of those people buys your phone. That is 1.3 phones, 1.3 billion phones sold on the local market before you even look at any other market. If it's about medicine, you are looking at all that population. If it's about any service, now, they are saying one of the reasons they are growing at a faster rate is the population. When you come back to Africa, you say Africa is overpopulated. By the way, let me ask you, let's even talk about locally here, Uganda. How much percentage is Uganda's geographical location occupied by human beings? How much? Do you know that the biggest part of Uganda is not occupied by human beings?
Yeah, true. I've been over this country.
So how do you say we overpopulated?
But at the same time, when
the biggest part of Uganda is not occupied by human beings. And we have not complained to you, the white man, that we want food. No, actually, you are the one who forced us. Please come and take this food. We don't need it.
But so, at the same time, you realize that, and we did discuss this thing about it last time, who is saying that these girls should be given these contraceptives, actually should be forced in these contraceptives? Are they men or women?
Both. Because remember, we lost control of our narrative a long time ago. These ideas are cooked in Western capitals and shipped here.
But at the same time, Rachel, you also need to understand, and that or leaders of Africa need to know this, that these people are making the, other than now introducing contraceptives, because it is coming down, it will go into vaccination. That's where we're heading. Now, before even it gets there, we're also going to have a problem of increasing the cost of raising a baby. Your baby, when you go for women now, you have decided to go cesarean, that they have been told that it is stylish when you go cesarean, and you do. Now you go cesarean, that's the cost of your baby. You raising that baby with medical care, with the education. You realize now today in Africa, a kindergarten is expensive than a university. That a child going to a nursery is going to spend, you are going to spend more money on that child than the money you are spending on someone at the university. Last time we were talking about that the taxes that are being introduced on pads for children, as a parent, that when you go to a supermarket, you are going to spend all this money. Now, I think governments need also, African governments need to look at this, that these people are pushing an agenda that raising a baby in Africa is going to be so expensive, as one of the hidden ways of curtailing Africans from having children. But also, if that is not working very well, then you have to introduce the pills now to these children who are school-going children. I mean, it's all that bad. But
even before the viewer loses sight of what we are saying, we are trying to say that the present narrative around poverty is a construct directly out of the colonial era and a little beyond. The poor have always been amongst us.
And they will ever be.
And they will ever be. But the business of categorizing exactly where poverty starts and where it ends and for how long, that one is a new construct. Even the fixation with saying that the people who will be most productive must actually be reduced is one way of perpetuating this situation. I talked about the latest entrance into the category of largest GDP in the world. There's China and there's India. Both of them have massive populations.
Sure.
The greatest reason for why they have made strides in recent years along those very lines has been that they seriously examined where they have been missing it all along. It is not a new thing for these countries to have big populations. What is new is that they have tailored an approach that works for them. What is different is that about 78, when the president of China was Deng Xiaoping, he started on this present marathon that has led to the catapulting of China to the very top. And he began to focus on using industry and internal economic growth to move his country forward. But the latest twist on that very situation was the credit sits on the head of Xi Jinping. I think that's his name, the present leader.
China.
Yes. He said at that time, in 2012, that in a decade, China will have wiped out extreme poverty. It was a declaration. And in 2021, a little shy of the 10-year mark, China declared that extreme poverty had been defeated.
In China?
Yes. And for them, extreme poverty is anybody who earns less than $2.50. Never mind the World Bank that is insisting they should raise it to $5.50. As if you're the one who pays my bills. But what those people did, and we are talking about this construct that says Africa is poor.
Exactly.
We are poor not so much in physical resources. We are poor in ideas. These people, China in particular, it had three avenues.
I also want to contest that we are poor in ideas. We are not poor in ideas. These white people are suppressing our ideas.
No, I think she's right. I also come to
we are poor in ideas that have exceeded the limitations of the white man.
On your point, Rachel, why I seem to agree with that is that, again, back to what the basics that we counted, that when you look at these basics, an African person does not need $2 to survive, because he does not need dollars to have his potatoes from the garden, to have his cassava, to have his food at home, because you are talking about two people. I mean, a person who cannot have $2, like these are street beggars in New York or some other place. We are looking at people who are established, they are back at home, but one of the things they have introduced as an indicator of poverty is that people who cannot access electricity. Can you imagine?
It's a sign of poverty.
Yes.
That is why I was saying that the reasons why these two economies have been referring to China and India, they have redone the narrative to suit them.
Exactly.
If you think, by the way, this measuring of $2, no, India uses rupees. They say no, the person who is poor does not have so many rupees.
Exactly.
They left the dollar behind because it is not their reality. Nobody goes and buys mushrooms in India in dollars. No one here buys potatoes in dollars. So why should the leading definition of your poverty be a currency that is not true
never seen
for most people?
That's exactly the argument we've been having. Why your money in America should be my money in Uganda. And that's the discussion William Ruto has been also very unequivocally talking against.
So when we are talking, as you're saying, when we are talking poverty, we must redo the narrative.
Yes, let's look at our own poverty in this particular.
No, and what it really means.
What it means.
Forget someone in Harvard
like I said,
saying that what it means to be poor in Kampala is this.
Like I said, Comrade Mututa, what does poverty mean? When you say Irumba, you are poor, what do you mean? Are you meaning that this morning I did not enter these studios with 1 million on my cabina? Or you are meaning, Irumba, you have no resources, you have no properties on your name? We must contextualize. Poverty in a country, what do you mean? You are in Niger, stealing the most expensive resources.
Sure. Then
you are saying Niger is poor. By the way, let me also give you these statistics, if it's about poverty. As of January 2021, 37.9 million Americans lived in poverty.
That's about the population of your
poverty. That is accounting 11, Mr. Mutauri Zakino, 11.6% of the total population of America. You get it? But America is still saying is the biggest, is the wealthiest country in the world. But 37 million of its population are one of the poorest people.
And like
now, here we are 45 million people. We have gone to 49 million people. You are saying we are very poor. But
you are poor because you cannot access electricity.
But that may not be my. You see, you have your targets in life. You get it? I may not have electricity, but I have gold. That's my way.
No, but I have food. I have a house.
But you see, you have gold, it is true. But remember, this person set up the system so that you can never sell that gold
because
anywhere where you get meaningful money, except to him.
Exactly. That's
you will not process.
So there is a difference between Irumba not having food, and Irumba having food but not wanting to cook. I have the food, but I may not want to cook. So you cannot say that man is suffering from lack of food. No. There could be another reason. One of the reasons why I could be not having dollar with me is because you have denied me market for my gold.
Yeah, but even then, like she's saying, do you need that dollar? I think that was the point you were coming to.
Yes. We were saying that everything about the African, on the African scene, we've said many times, has to be redone. The narrative has to be reconstructed. It has to be revisited because the person who decided that it's $2 has their reasons. Why didn't they say 3 yuan or 10 yen or 16 rupees? Why $2? Knowing full well that the people you're dealing with, the dollar cannot be the principal medium of exchange.
Sure.
So what was the intention of the fixation with the dollar issue? But that aside, I was saying that the reason why these two countries have moved up, and in fact we can take a leaf from their book, is that because they have redone the narrative. They have revisited the factors of production. They have revisited everything. They studied carefully. What have been their limitations? And they said, okay, we'll now go about it this way, using these parameters. Forget the other guy's parameters. They're for his own reasons. And I was saying that China used 3 important avenues when this gentleman rose to power. He said, the first avenue, we will work tirelessly to isolate exactly who is under this poverty they call absolute. Look for them in the village, in the parish, in the town, in the sub-county.
Those can be ruthless, they'll do it.
They did it. They looked for everyone called poor, and they arrived at a certain figure. Then they said, they went about it number 2. Why exactly are you poor? They isolated the exact dynamics, like you were saying. What does it mean to be poor? They examined those figures. When someone is in China, what does it mean to be poor? But more than that, they now assigned specific officials to actually make it their purpose to move these households out of poverty. It is a full-time job. Can you imagine assigning official X, Y, and Z for household X, Y, and Z? That is why, at the end of a decade, they have results. But I have never heard of such an approach in New York, in Denmark, or in Germany. Those people have their own individual interpretation, and it's working for them. Until such a day as we have that kind of approach, we will not defy these figures that they call poverty in this time and day.
Someone has written, and I'll get his point here, said, why would investors be only Chinese, Indian, or Western? Because now if you empower them more than the local people, we will grow, how will you grow our economy? To me, it will not take us anywhere because they're taking away the profits out of the country.
Why would they? Because they are nearer the true sources of money. China and India have been working very much harder to isolate the reasons why they were at a loss against the white man in the economy of the world. So for them, they have bridged or they've shortened the distance to true wealth. So they now have a shorter path to extracting capital, for example, that is cheap. They are nearer to actually refining more of their own produce. So for them, they have answered many of the questions that plague us today.
Sure.
So it doesn't have to be the German. The Indian also has access to that same capital.
Ndugu Irumba, because now when you look at this, someone's telling you that to be able to be rich, to fit in my class, make sure you don't have children. And that to be able to do so, make sure that you don't produce what you produce, I produce and sell it to you. And because you are poor, I'll even get what you have, I process it, then get back to you. The last time we were talking to you and we said, people who are claiming to be that Africa is poor, you have a Japanese car which is manufactured and sold at about $2,000. But when it comes to Africa, you are going to sell it 10 times that much. But when you move on the streets of Africa, you will see all types of cars coming from those countries and coming at a very expensive cost. How can you say that Africa is poor when they are consuming at twice the cost of that of your production? But at the same time, the other lady raised an issue of Africans are not able, and the point she has brought up, Africans are not able to access capital, and if they do, they access it at twice the cost.
Not twice,
yes.
At least almost 10 times.
Yeah, and you get money and you give to the other people who don't need it at a lower cost, but for Africans who badly need this money, they are getting it 10, 30, 40, 50 times that cost. That brings us to a point that a template has been set. And now she's saying that Africa need to come out of that by putting our own definition and yardsticks, especially when it comes to poverty, so that we shall be able to fight poverty.
When you go to Sudan and South Sudan, you find hammers. You know hammer, these big.
Yes.
These hammers.
Guzzlers.
Packed on grass thatch. Yes. The person who sold that hammer to that South Sudanese goes back to America and says, the other people are very poor. After extracting, hundreds of dollars from the person you are saying is poor. Even them when they are targeting a market, when you produce a product, you have a target market. These big cars, the American cars, those Jeeps and Hummers, when they produce them, they target market. They say this one will go to South Sudan and Congo. Why do they do so? Because they have the capacity to buy, isn't it? You have the capacity to buy. Now, indeed, they bring the product, you buy it very expensively. By the way, these hammers on the other continents of America and Asia and Europe, they are very cheap. When they reach here in Africa, they are sold 20 times more expensive. But still an African buys it. After buying it, he goes back to America and says, you are very poor.
Yeah, I was last time on... So, I was one time...
How do you bring me a very expensive product? I buy it, then you go back and say that man is poor. Who is poor?
I was one time on KLM, and most of their flights, they don't have the first class, they have the business class. And so
So you sat in business class?
No, I was not even in business class, but I was asking, said, why are you people not having, most of your airlines aircrafts don't have first class? Say, first class is only good for Africa, because most of the airlines that have a lot of business in Africa, they will fly first, they will have first class facilities. I said, why? I said, because most of the leaders of Africa want to fly first class. But in Europe, we are doing business. So most of the people are in business class. The leaders here don't use the first class, or they are flying their own jets. But in Africa, we have many of your leaders who want to use the first class because then they can. I'm like, so you are saying that it's a good business in Africa? In Africa. So yeah, those guys, yes. and they pay. Indeed. Now, it kept running in my mind. So what this people take us for? You see? So in other words, they
know exactly who you are. They know you are not poor, but they want you to put. They want to put you in that position whereby you feel inferior, whereby you feel they are the ones with the solution, so that you go to them. They know. That's why, however much President Museveni has been, he was there. I met the president sometime back, a month ago. In a meeting, he told us, these people have been saying they have cut aid. World Bank is stopping aid and everything because of signing the Anti-Homosexuality Bill 2 Act. But now, when in the cameras they're saying we are stopping, But in sales, they are coming to me, giving me a lot of concessions that they should be saying. Actually, I'm the one refusing to sign. You have told the people that you are stopping. Now you are telling me to sign. You are giving me donations, grants, and what? I have not asked you. So, why am I saying so? In the open, they want to tell everybody. Like you, if you had a woman, you are a woman. You would tell you want to tell everybody that my woman is very bad. But inside you just want these people to hate your woman so that you enjoy her alone. That's what the Americans are doing. You enjoy that woman alone. You tell everybody, this woman is sick even. She's very sick. But at night, it is that woman you actually love so most. So, this is what Americans, they just want us to be there. Feel so pitiful about ourselves. Feel so sorry about ourselves as they come and benefit from our resources. So you cannot say someone is poor and you bring him a hammer to buy.
We run to the close of the program. Rachel, what do you think now needs to be looked at, especially in the African? Of course, you have already talked of coming up with our own as Africans concepts and scripts on defining what poverty is, but also looking at the wider picture of working together as a continent, the leadership to be able to achieve, like we have seen happen in China and India and some of the upcoming economies. Do you think there can be a time when Africans will sit down to have a common definition of our own problems, let alone poverty?
We are hopeful that such a time will come. We don't know if it will be in our lifetime, but we hope it will eventually come. But there is no way around having honest conversations with ourselves. There is no way around appreciating the dynamics in which we find ourselves. For sure, there will never be a day where the powers of our age find it in their best interests to do good by us. That day will never come. For the simple reason that, unfortunately, in global affairs, the greatest exploiter sits on top of the heap. Yes, that's how it is.
Not at the bottom, at the top.
The more ruthless the exploiter, the higher up they go.
Sure.
That is why China's also joined the heap of new colonizers. And India is also in that contest.
Looking at Africa,
the higher you go, the more you realize you need to exploit other people to stay on top of the heap. But China is one of those examples of rapid advancement in living memory. And one of the things that they realized was that the former feudal system run by monarchies was not what would deliver China as we know it today.
Sure.
Among them was leaning exploitatively on the masses to extract labor and all kinds of other concessions, to occupy all kinds of land, and so on and so forth. So in this modern era, China went about redistributing or redoing land ownership in that country. I'm not saying that that is true for every country, but what I'm trying to say is that each country has to see what the barriers to meaningful progress have been.
Yeah, but also,
and to develop the kind of answers, not necessarily ones that are written in books in France and so on. France is France, you will need your own answers. We have not been so good at doing that. We have read all these manuals that talk about the experience of the people of Luxembourg and the people of Italy, and internalize the examples of the people of Canada and of South America. My God. What about if we brought our examples nearer home?
Exactly.
The day we do that, we'll have started on the journey of redoing this definition of poverty. This definition of poverty cannot take us where we need to go. In some cases, like you said, you can't say people are poor when they buy most of your stuff. Do you pay them to buy it? So it means that there is no shortage of money in Africa. That's what it means. But the use of the money is the problem.
Thank you so much, lady and gentlemen, for these contributions, and thank you much the viewer who has been with us for the last 2 hours that have been here looking at the issues that really affect us as people of Africa. And the issue of poverty may not be concluded today. I know there will be more discussions. We'll also come back with the concrete examples of the American dream. When people talk of the American dream, when our people are dying on the high seas to escape that poverty in Africa so that they can go to Europe and America and all those other countries which they think arrived, which is not true. We'll also come back with that information and show you the exact picture of what is taking place in some of those countries for you to be able to appreciate, to know that Africa is the best place that we have. The only problem is that we need to make it better for us to live in. We have all that we need to be able to make Africa a better country. The poverty that is being imposed on us by definition is not the poverty we know of, but someone just wants us to believe that we are definitely poor. I thank you for being with us, and also thank our production team that has been behind the machines to bring you this program on this day. My name is James Mtuta. Until next week on Friday is when we shall meet again. Have a nice weekend and be blessed. Thank you so much.
Nibanyita kananye niyita Sezi Nuwagaba, commercial officer Ntungamo District Government.
I am Sezi Nuwagaba, the commercial officer for Ntungamo Local Government. I express my gratitude to God for this platform and the Emyuga initiative brought to us by His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, as it has positively transformed the lives of the people in Ntungamo, whom I have known for a long time. When you visit the beneficiaries of this program, you can easily witness the significant positive changes in their lives. The audit report demonstrates that despite their leader being deaf and blind, profits are being made, highlighting how this program has actively engaged and evolved every individual. Initially, we received 2,650 million Uganda shillings. Each constituency received 530 million Uganda shillings. I would like to express my gratitude to this platform for providing us with the opportunity to share information about the Emyuga program. Our special thanks go to the President for initiating the program, and additionally, I would like to mention that there are numerous similar projects in Rubare and Ntungamo.
Bintu biri bisatu ebigaggawaza abantu: production, service delivery, obubbi.
Twakti etuuse naye obuzibu obuliwo nti ettaka litugenda okusenda ddene tuyingidde mu muzikiti fuuti 10. Fuuti 10? Omuzikiti ogwagazaki? Tukusende nagwo. Senda.
3,000 tribes, 2,000 languages, 52 countries, totally divided.
Oto, is it the Namgala you talked about? Yeah, Auto Media.
Fire continue burning.
No, let our teach fire.
You started the fight, let it go on. The wedding is cancelled, and my word, final. And take it from me.
Okay, Dad.
The British that first came to this country came way back in 1843. They were not politicians, they were spies.
It's a call to action, an appeal. Let us heed this call to action and change the narrative of our history. Let us bridge the gap. Let us heal the wounds that have plagued us for far too long. Cease fire. Let us harmonize our future. Cease fire.
This weekend on UBC.
You remind me of Christ when he's being crucified.
Yeah.
And then he says, Father, forgive them.
For they know not.
They do not know what they are doing. Luke chapter 23. You know, they do not know what they are doing. But look at this. This is a man in pain, according to our humanistic understanding.
It was pain.
It was real.
But his heart
was not in pain.
Was not. His heart overrode pain, the physical pain. And he said, you can do nothing to me that can keep me from loving you.
Now, his confessions are contrary to what he's going through. In other words, he has matured to a level of being able to know how to handle pain and how to love.
Thank you.
Now, his